no extraordinary business. So we will go to item 8, which is the City Rail Link update, and I'll hand to Barry.
Thank you, Chair. This is, and if John Bridgman, the Chair of City Rail Link Limited, and Sean Sweeney, the CE, would like to come up for a presentation. This is just the our regular 6-monthly update from City Rail Link Limited on progress on the project. Next month we will have an update from Auckland Transport and Kiwi Rail, which will talk about the wider network, but this is focused on the actual project. And I'm sure it'll come up in discussion, but it's also a special occasion because this is Sean's last meeting with this committee before he heads off overseas. So we'll come back to that and acknowledge that later on, Sean. Over to you and John.
Good morning, everyone. It's tremendous to be back here again. It doesn't seem like 6 months since we were last here, but in that intervening period, we've made some good progress on the project, and we want to appraise you of that. The project still has a fair way to run, and you'll see from today's presentation, a lot of that is focused around systems and testing and commissioning. But I'm not going to let Sean off just because it's his last week, and hand over to him to run through the presentation. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, John. This clicker is the one. Yeah, let's see. Okay. Okay. Kia ora tātou. Look, this is just a bit of a slideshow of just progress across the whole job. It's pretty clear if you go down on site that we are getting to the back end of the job. The stations are largely complete, and we are basically completing our fit out, but we are moving into the testing and commissioning phase, which is, we've always said, is the most complex and risky part of the job. Health and safety. The project puts an enormous amount of effort, energy, focus into health and safety. You can see this recent slide taken from the Link Alliance's board pack. You can see an downward trend in lost time injury frequency rates. We're now down below 1. I think we're about 4 a couple of years ago. So that's been the subject of a lot of hard work. But we're always only one moment away from a problem. We had a electric flash incident a week ago, and then there was the incident on the wider network yesterday, which now that we're working with, the sites are largely powered up, and we are, within a month, we'll be moving to be working on the overhead lines, which will be carrying 25,000 volts. So we are entering a complex and dangerous part of the job, and everyone is very aware of the risks that still remain in front of us. General update, the Link Alliance are still targeting practical completion before 26 November 25. We've always said that's a P50, and our view that is the P50 is the most accurate way of describing that, which means there's a 50% chance of that date being met and a 50% chance of that date not being met. But that is their target, and they're working very hard towards getting there. Overall, the project is still tracking to conclude within the existing agreed funding levels. Construction's 90% complete. Fit out of all stations is due for completion mid-next year, but some of them will be largely complete, apart from minor elements, by Christmas. And we are now energising the stations. The exterior sky elements are complete, and the urban realm elements are well advanced. And when you hear that construction is ongoing, within 6 months, really, construction will be referring to urban realm because everything else will be largely done. We've started our emergency services preparations. We had some emergency scenarios last week, and the testing and commissioning has commenced. So we're into that phase now, which is a great milestone. Very quickly, just a quick flash through the sites. You can see here at Te Waihoratu, once you start ripping the protective plastic off this station, it's starting to look more and more complete, as you can see. Karanga Ahapi, the exterior is now scaffolding removed. You can see the full extent of the cladding and the elements that are there. Again, you can see the slide on your right, that's the stations, the underground stations. They are platforms. They are largely complete apart from protective wrapping on them now. But they're now being fenced off because when we energise the overhead lines, you need full protection if you're walking down the platform. Mongafo, again, the building looks largely complete from the outside. I put this slide in because you can really start seeing this extent of this site and the extent of a future property development response to this site. The tunnels are all buried, and you can see on the left the final roading is now being installed. And inside the station you can see the final art coming. That's the wet wall, which is just about to get its volcanic tiles inlaid into it. So we're into testing and commissioning. You've seen this slide before. It's complicated. I have to read it myself every time. But there's actually 12 stages of testing. We are roughly at stage 3B at the moment, so we're heading through. And that's the different elements are being energised and tested before we move to testing them as complete systems. Oops. Just to show you where we are on that journey. This is stage 3B, testing and commissioning. The blue line is the plan. The green is what we've actually achieved. At the moment, they're about 4% behind. But most of our areas have what we call a cobra line. You can see it sort of rears up like an S. And so most areas, there's a long tail starting, and then you have a very intense period, and we're just entering that in the testing and commissioning now. A big milestone, Matariki, was we connected our network to the wider rail network. You can't quite see it, but those three lights on the bottom, they actually, you can see MTD, that's Mount Eden, KRD, K Road, and you can't see the one that says Aotea. Those are the original station names, and that's just showing that those signals are now up and working. And the photo on the right, if you can see all the lines in pink, that's actually showing our network is now live and it's connected to the wider network. That was one of our biggest risks, and that was achieved very successfully. So that's a big milestone for the project. This is the program that awaits us. As you can see, we are heading towards the back end of station fit out. We're already into station testing. Early next year, the light blue bubbles are integration testing. Once we've done the individual stations, we then move to testing the wider track and the wider network. And that will all be taking place next year. Look, this is really, I don't expect you to read this or understand it because it's very complicated, but this is just to show you that the project team has at a very high level a plan to complete the job and complete the testing, and this outline shows the major areas that they are going about doing that. Basically, they have to complete the communications systems, then they have to complete the building management systems. They then come together to give us a completely integrated building comms and management system. At the same time, the tan boxes, we're powering up all the sites, and then we move to powering up the elements that will run the trains, like the traction power and the signalling, the train radio and the tunnel ventilation system. When they all come together and the systems and the stations are working, we can then start testing the trains, first slowly and then increasing speeds and increasing scenarios. So that's the high-level plan that the team is working to. We have already, we're well on our way into engaging with emergency services, and that's going very well, and that can be a crucial part of validating any new railway. but there's a high level of cooperation with the emergency services, and as I said, we just had a major set of tests last week that went very well. One thing we have done on the project is we have formed what we call a one client alliance. That means that all the different entities that sit on the client side, that's basically CRL, AT and KiwiRail, we work together as one unified group to do the myriad of things that we have to do individually and collectively to deliver the project for the client. That was set up beginning of this year. It's going very well, and we are moving through the milestones. Those bubble diagrams just show that that's a high-level plan of all the things the One Client Alliance has to do. And as you can see, the bubbles are being filled, and we are clicking through the areas we need to progress. So that the One Client Alliance is one of the real success stories of the project. John, you might want to do this one.
Yeah. So you'll be aware from the media, etc., that Sean is leaving the project to take up an opportunity, a very significant opportunity in Ireland. He leaves the project at the end of next week, and the board, whilst devastated to lose Sean, very quickly landed on the right option of selecting Pat Brocky to take over. Pat's been with the organisation since 2019 as our CFO, and that institutional knowledge was really valuable for us going forward, and sponsors collectively agreed that from a number of fronts it's the right thing to do to appoint Pat. So Pat has been often acting for Sean if he's been away, and is effectively Sean's well, I suppose he often is his 2IC on the project for one reason or another. And so we're really pleased to have that depth. We're in the final stages of recruiting a backfill for Pat in his role of CFO. But I think it enables us to ensure we maintain momentum, which is vital at this stage, and don't end up with some form of hiatus in the last run towards practical completion, which would well have been the case if we'd sought to appoint someone externally. Pat will be here at the next trick, is that the right term? Meeting, yeah.
Look, and I just reiterate what John's saying. I resigned 3 months ago. We are through the transition at CRL. Any blip would have occurred 2 months ago, and it's very much business as usual at CRL now and going forward. And Pat's already ending, for the last 2 months he's attended the Project Alliance Board again, so the change has been seamless. Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you, gents. Right, questions. We've got Wayne and Morris.
Sure. So, while it may not be on the critical aspect of the project, there are opportunities for the commercialisation of the operation in terms of digital signage for advertising, and conceivably when I visit other locations overseas, opportunities for retail offerings and the like. Are those things being developed with you having some things ready for opening?
The commercialisation as such is really, my understanding, that's a matter for AT. We're providing a railway and everything that's required to run a railway, but the commercialisation is an issue for AT. We don't get involved in the commercialisation of the stations. We're just simply delivering them a complying, functioning station.
The other question is just around the the list of additional things that would be useful for the enhancement of the CRL, and again, that may not be your issue directly, that goes to level crossings, station improvements, and the like. Is there a list of those that's available?
I believe that is something that AT and Kiwirail will update on when they address the committee. I know it's covered, we talk about it, but again, that's their responsibility, but we do have line of sight on that. And Barry, you're expecting an update from them?
That'd be a good question to bring to the next month's meeting when we've got AT and Kiwirail there, and I'll ensure that they actually address that as part of their briefing.
Thanks, Wayne. Morris?
Yeah, just quickly, there were two dates. You gave a date in the earlier part of the slide saying 26 November next year, and then in the big multiple boxes, there's a black one at the end saying day one passenger ops. Is that the date, or is it the date that the actual work finishes completely, the 26th of November? Will we expect to see passengers travelling, say coming in on the Eastern Line and carrying on through from the 26th of November?
No, that is contract practical completion date.
Right.
It's quite different to day one operations.
The day one ops is?
That's again an AT Kiwirail call. It's sometime in 2026. That's not our call.
Okay.
So the date we gave is the date that the Link Alliance gets.
Yeah, I just want to get that clear.
I'm just trying to avoid any ambiguity.
But
that's contract completion date, not day one operations for public.
All good?
all good.
Julie?
I think just to clarify that, you said just because it's a public forum, it's practical completion date, contract completion date would be a date after that, I think, once all the issues of the contract are resolved. Practical completion is in November. Yeah.
Definition.
Just a definitional issue.
Thanks, John. You'll find out, Morris, I'm sure. Julie?
Kia ora. Thank you. I wanted to start by acknowledging the amazing health and safety record. I think that's something to really be proud of. And it's not too long ago in this country we used to build these kinds of things, and several deaths would be part of the price that a community paid, and it's really good to see that it's done well. So I just wanted to sort of see how are we capturing that and how are we telling that story so we can learn from it for future projects, because that's a real standout for me. And then I've got two other quick questions.
It's a good question. There is a lot of work documenting what's been done, and I think that can be, consolidated. It's been very, very well documented, the work, and the Link Alliance participates and speaks and contributes at all the industry forums for health and safety. So the information is getting out there, but I think that would form part of some form of lessons learned for the project when we're at a point of looking back and summing up what went well and what didn't go well. I've already had discussions with Barry about this, so that would be one of the things that should definitely be on the agenda.
Great, and I would encourage you to perhaps think about how to present that story to people who aren't part of the industry, like us, in terms of influencing decision makers around some of the legal frameworks and stuff. I think that would be really helpful for us to understand better. My next question is around the comms. I guess really speaks to Councillor Williamson's question too. But I just sort of want to understand where they sit rather than asking you for detail, because I think probably the comms about the fact that the chicken's still cooking, even though it looks like it's in the oven and it's looking nice and golden, I think that probably sits more with AT than with CRLL. Is that correct? Yeah, okay, so that's something I think for us to chase up, because that's going to be a really important part of the next chapter, is people understanding the chicken's still cooking. And then my final question, thanks for just nodding for that. Told you it was a quick one. My final question is just around the compensation scheme as well, and acknowledging that the new CEO has overseen that as the CFO. Just interested in how you're planning on reporting around how that has worked as well, being the first of its kind, and whether there's some stuff we can take from how that's progressed as well. So not expecting you to answer that question now, more asking when is that coming, that sort of reflection stuff. Thank you.
I think that will be part of the lessons learned.
Thanks very much. Good luck, Sean.
Thanks, Julie. Chris?
Thank you, Chair. I guess my question following on from that is, by and large, it's been wonderful in terms of health and safety, but the accident that occurred, I understand the person is in the burns unit out in Middlemore. I just wondered what care and support we're providing in that situation.
Are you referring to the accident at Parnell?
Yes.
That's not part of our project. That's a KiwiRail wider network issue.
No, I understand that, but I just wondered if you're aware of what support we put in place. If not, don't worry. John, I was wondering if, as chair, you could help us understand the modelling that might have been done on projects of this sort of scale from the date of completion, the likelihood of what we might expect in terms of the CRL being open to passengers. I've taken time to go and look at a few examples of this around the place, and you can't really compare Sydney Metro Line because they were driverless trains, and it's slightly different and it's certainly larger. But the complexity of the work that needs to be undertaken from the point of physical completion is mind-boggling to me. And I'm sure that you, as board chair, have been looking at other examples around the world. Can you give us any insight as to what we might expect?
You're absolutely right. The work required post-construction completion and what that looks like for the development of the patronage experience and patronage levels is a very significant piece of work and is very complex. And again, CRLL is really interested in the completion of the construction, and we hand over the facility at a defined level to AT and KiwiRail. And I know there's a lot of work that's being done by those parties on what that looks like and what the scenarios would look like for patronage. And my understanding is they'll be addressing that with you when they come next month. And a lot of the work that they've done is reflective of the experiences, particularly in Australia, and further afield as they look to start projects.
Thank you. Chair, I just wonder, and forgive me if I'm doing this at the wrong time, but it is really difficult where we're dealing with so many different agencies on these things, and it's similar with the question that was asked by earlier around the development above stations by, I think it was Wayne who asked that question. I just wondered what we could do, and maybe through the Mayor's office, in trying to get a much more consolidated approach to understanding this for our elected members, of what might be forthcoming. We will need to do that with AT, we will need to do it with KiwiRail, I recognise that, but ultimately the public of Auckland are looking to this council to give them some guidance on what we might expect. So I just wonder whether that's a body of work that could be undertaken.
I see Barry writing furiously, and I agree. So, it's something that potentially we can bring next time when Auckland Transport and KiwiRail turn up, because it's the doing and the using of it is going to be of greatest interest probably to the Auckland public. Any further questions? I've just got a couple. Oh, no, Wayne? Yep.
A really quick question, and again, it may be outside your scope, but in terms of digital accessibility, especially Wi-Fi and the like, is that going to be a pretty seamless experience for people across across the underground station network?
I'll just get Wayne Cooney, our systems director, to respond to that.
Kia ora. There's no provision of Wi-Fi planned, but there will be basically state-of-the-art 5G services. So public cellular radio will be a continuous service the whole way through the tunnel, the stations, and up to the service.
Okay, is the Wi-Fi something we might consider, or
Not generally.
no? Not generally, okay.
5G is definitely going to give a more seamless and far more productive service to the public.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Mike, online? Mike Lee?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Can you please confirm that the CPO building was seismically strengthened or re-strengthened to the latest standards, please?
We'll get back to you on that one.
You don't know?
I'm reasonably sure it was done to all the required standards, but I'd like to get back to you with exactly what was done.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? None? Is there just... Oh, Desley? So no questions. Is there any debate? Because I think it would be appropriate if Sean stayed where he was so we can have an acknowledgement instead of hiding at the back. So if there's any debate? No. Excellent. Desley?
Right, thank you. Sean, please stay where you are, because I'm very cognizant of that this is your last time in front of us before you head overseas. So I'd like to acknowledge you today and your contribution to this project. CRL, as we know it today, began its life as an Auckland transport project, which in corporate parlance lifted and shifted somehow to being a Crown entity. And on arrival, Sean found a project that was not well scoped and was certainly underpriced. Much of the procurement had yet to be done, including who was going to design the main works, who was going to build the stations, and crucially, who was going to drill the tunnels. In addition, we had to figure out who would fit out the civil infrastructure so that it would become a railway rather than a nicely lined hole in the ground. This, of course, was Sean's expertise, and he quickly got to work alongside Crown and Council and made it very clear that there needed to be a clear-sighted view of what needed to be built and how much it would cost. For example, the original designs were not future-proofed for longer trains that might be needed in the future, or for some simple things like the Beresford Square entrance near K Road, which will be crucial for those in the community with mobility issues. Into this mix, of course, were other challenges along the way. One of the preferred candidates for the big contracts went into receivership. In that context, Sean made it clear the model of contracting which the project started with wasn't going to work, and advised us about the benefits of an alliance model, both for better delivery and to manage risk along the way. Now, speaking of risks, I'm told that early risk management meetings dutifully included the low likelihood of high impact things like a volcanic eruption, without any expectation such an event would happen. And that was true. Until suddenly COVID hit, just as civil infrastructure delivery was ramping up. It's a credit to Sean that we navigated through all that, and yes, there have been many frustrations along the way, and we can only wonder where the project may have been had the government allowed big builds like this to continue at full speed through the lockdowns like in other countries. As we councillors have seen when we visited, the complexity and scale of CRL is staggering, and not something this country is used to delivering. It isn't like the likes of the Waterview Tunnel because of the huge amount of technology and systems that has to be installed. As you move to your next challenge, Sean, you've laid down publicly some challenges for governors to think about in terms of how we deliver infrastructure in this country. And Mayor, I know that you've spoken to the team about that as well. I'm hopeful we'll heed those messages and come together to agree priorities. The Mayor's Integrated Transport Plan is an attempt to do just that in our patch in Auckland. And that's our challenge. For you though, Sean, one day I believe we'll all look back and thank the foresighted people who promoted and funded this project, but especially those who managed and delivered it into existence. And that's you and your team and the various other companies that are part of the Link Alliance. Good luck in Ireland and all the best, and thank you. Come back soon, and I look forward to riding on the new metro with you in 2026. Ka kite.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further comments? Would you like to move and just note the additional resolution up there to formally thank and acknowledge Sean? So happy to move. Seconder? Thanks, Wayne. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, Sean. Enjoy the Guinness and the garlic football.